I approached many friends that you have got 4 sons. Give me 1 son so that I can train him how to become real preacher of Bhagavad Gita. How one can understand. Because Bhagavad Gita is being misinterpreted. So I wanted to preach it as it is. That was my mission. So practically nobody joined. Then I decided.
I was wandering in the street and some of the boys saw me and gradually they came to me.
Who is Srila Prabhupada? People often ask. At various times he was known as a scholar, a philosopher, a cultural ambassador, a prolific author, a religious leader, a spiritual teacher, a social critic, and a holy man. He was not one of those modern entrepreneurial gurus who come to the West with slickly packaged, watered-down versions of Eastern spirituality, promising instant well-being to anyone who could spare $50. Srila Prabhupada was rather a true holy man, one who could be called an acharya, which means a spiritual master who teaches by example. After arriving in the United States in 1965 at the age of 69, Srila Prabhupada formed the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which developed into a worldwide spiritual community with hundreds of ashrams, schools, temples, and farms, and with thousands of dedicated disciples who made Hare Krishna a household word. To have achieved all this in only 12 years was remarkable. But before he passed away from this world in 1977, Srila Prabhupada had also written and published over 80 volumes of translation and commentary on the great spiritual classics of ancient India. His books were welcomed with great critical acclaim by the Western academic community and by scholars from India as well, and they became standard texts in almost every university and library around the world. Srila Prabhupada had also succeeded in transmitting the profound wisdom of the ancient Vedic culture in a form and style that was clearly understandable to the average modern man. He could somehow explain even the most difficult philosophical concepts to people who were totally unfamiliar with the complex Indian religious tradition. Srila Prabhupada circled the globe 11 times between 1966 and 1977, and everywhere he went, he taught the same basic truths, the fundamental principles of religion that constitute the cornerstone of spiritual understanding for everyone, no matter what their nationality or religion.
Bhaktivedanta Swami Bhutale Bhaktivedanta Swami
The most sacred place on earth. In 1965, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada left the holy city of Vrindavan to deliver the message of Krishna consciousness to the Western countries. At the request of his spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada gave up his peaceful and contemplative life there in order to preach the most profound wisdom of ancient India to the rest of the world. No one could have imagined that in a few short years, Srila Prabhupada would have created a revolution in spiritual consciousness and become the Acharya, the spiritual teacher to so many people. He would speak at great length and often with considerable intensity on various subjects. During these discourses, Srila Prabhupada would turn the profound Vedic philosophy into a practical cutting edge that penetrated every sphere of life and thought. Srila Prabhupada taught that there can be no real peace or brotherhood in human society as long as we are murdering our brothers, the animals. Nature's laws of karma, action and reaction, ensure that violence is repaid with violence. In other words, as you sow, so shall you reap. Srila Prabhupada's views were always persuasive because they rested on systematic logic and sound philosophy. He once said, "Philosophy without religion is mental speculation, and religion without philosophy is sentimentality." An Acharya is one who teaches by example. By his personal example, Srila Prabhupada demonstrated that the soul, the self, is naturally eternal, full of knowledge, and full of transcendental bliss. When a living being is awakened to his original constitutional position of Krishna consciousness, he becomes filled with sublime, exalted spiritual emotions that have no material counterpart. As a great self-realized and God-conscious saint, Srila Prabhupada often exhibited the spiritual happiness that Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita. That sacred and ancient fountainhead of wisdom has this to say about the final state of human perfection. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he knows there is no greater gain.
Srila Prabhupada became known to the world as a scholar, philosopher, social critic, and spiritual leader. But to his disciples, Srila Prabhupada was dearmost friend, father, and inner guide. The importance of the spiritual master to his disciples cannot be overstated. It is said that only by the mercy of the spiritual master can one receive the benediction of Krishna, and without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any spiritual advancement. So the disciple's entire life focuses on the spiritual master and his instructions. In this relationship, the activities of the spiritual master are of monumental importance to his devotees. A disciple finds meaning even in the smallest gesture.
Rama